Everyone. Hello, hello. Thank you all for being here today for our first quarterly program of the Small Business Solutions Hub. We're excited to have you here, and this is an incredible subject, especially with everything that's going on down in LA. To be prepared. And our Small Business Solutions Hub is quarterly programming that we do for our small businesses, and then you can always find the videos up on our YouTube channel. Adam does such a great job with that. And we'd like to thank our current Small Business Solutions Hub partners and investors: Ask Eric Computer Services, Chambers Construction, Eugene Area Radio Station, Hirschner Huntner Attorneys, Oregon Community Credit Union, WaFd Bank, and Kaiser Permanente. And if you'd like any more information on how you could become a sponsor with us, I'd love to chat with you after the program. And we'd like to give a big shout out to Justin Quick, owner of Drive Pro, and Dan Atchison for sponsoring our lunch here today. And Dan, thank you so much. It was a surprise that he brought all this great swag for everybody. So now we're going to thank our program sponsor, Kaiser Permanente. And I'd like to introduce Matthew J. Woodburn, who is the small group sales manager for Kaiser Permanente Northwest, and has been a part of Kaiser since 2013, while he started in the healthcare industry back in 2006. Matthew's passion for healthcare access and insurance began in 2005 when he faced his own health challenges. His passion to help others find healthcare solutions is unwavering. Go ahead, Matthew.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm delighted to welcome you to the Springfield Chambers Small Business Solutions Hub on behalf of Kaiser Permanente. Today, we gather to discuss a crucial topic: disaster preparedness for businesses. This is a very timely topic, especially considering recent events in the Los Angeles area. I look forward to learning more from our experts on how we can keep our businesses resilient and ready for any challenge. Before turning it over to the stars of the session, I wanted to share some exciting updates from our teams at Kaiser Permanente. Over the past year, we have hired new providers at Chase Gardens Medical Office. As of November 2024, we have doubled the number of clinicians on site, dramatically increasing appointment availability. Our physicians are welcoming new patients. We've also hired more staff to support our dedicated Chase Gardens member support line, ensuring members get help with referrals, billing, appointments, network providers, navigating services, and more. Local experts are available Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. When busy or after hours, calls will be answered by call center staff trained specifically in Lane County member service support. Kaiser Permanente has also expanded its network partnership with Peace Health, giving members even more options for care across Lane County. KP members can receive primary care from any Peace Health location across the county, reducing the need to change primary doctors when choosing Kaiser Permanente. We've also added exam rooms at Chase Gardens Medical Office, and we've doubled the operations at our Valley River Dental Office. I really thank you for letting me be here today, and let's make the most of this really informative and engaging event. Have a great day.
Thank you. And on each of the tables, I put one copy, and you can get more of the Lane County Disaster Preparedness and Resiliency Toolkit for Businesses. And Samantha Roberts is here with us today. If you have any questions afterwards, please feel free to go to Samantha. And with that, I'd like to introduce today's speakers from the Oregon Department of Emergency Management: Sonya McCormick, who is the Public-Private Partnership Program Manager, and Kayla Thomas, who is the Community Preparedness Coordinator.
Yeah.
Okay.
Timers, so let's stay on track. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having us here today. It's always great to come out and talk to people about disaster preparedness, something that is very important. As many people have mentioned, what's going on in LA right now. So today we're going to talk about what does that mean for you as a business, but also your employees and as individuals, how can you be more prepared for when those bad days happen? So a little bit about who you'll be hearing from today. So again, my name is Kayla Thompson. I'm the Community Preparedness Coordinator. I've been in my position about 18 months. Prior to that, I was a deputy sheriff with Marion County, and I served on our search and rescue team. I joined search and rescue 3 weeks before the 2020 Beachy Creek wildfire hit because I just wanted to do something different. And then I lived in that world for about a month and was exposed to emergency management, and I walked away with a whole new passion on how I could help my community. And so started looking into emergency management. And then that led me here. So my role, 3 main things that I do. I oversee our Be 2 Weeks Ready program, which you'll hear about today, teaching people how to be prepared. I also am our state CERT coordinator, community emergency response teams, if any of you are familiar with those. And then I'm also the Oregon liaison for FEMA Region 10's Youth Preparedness Council. And then the best part of my job is, this is my office. This is what I get to do. Go around the state and talk to people and answer their questions, hear their concerns, and teach them how to be more prepared. So, Sonya.
So Sonya McCormick, it's nice to be here. So my role is public-private partnership program manager. Essentially, I serve as a conduit between the private sector and state emergency and recovery operations. And I'll talk a little bit about more what that means in our presentation, but I started in emergency management at 9/11. That I think a lot of us probably have a 9/11 memory. For me, it was the anthrax attacks that happened right after that, and led me to focus on bioterrorism, which is what I wrote my master thesis on. And so then became more engaged in the emergency management role. I taught in academics for 20 years and then came on board as a manager of our operations and response section in 2017, right at the same time of the eclipse, the Chetco Bar fire, which I'm sure we all remember, and the Eagle Creek fire. So it was a busy time, but then transitioned to this role right before COVID. So it's been educational, but it's really been interesting because prior to coming on in this role, how the state kind of engaged with businesses was, what can businesses do for us? And what I did when I came on board and then interviewed what other P3, there's one of us and maybe 30 states around the nation, is what can we do to help you get back up and running, because you serve the community, you're the pillar of the community, you're an important base of the community. So what can I do? Can I tell ODOT to clear a certain road because that's what you use to get your supply in? Are you having trouble with getting power? You know, how do we engage with that, and who do I talk to support that? And we really work closely with the local emergency managers as well. So I'll get into that more in a minute, but thank you for having us.
Okay, so before we get into preparedness, want to give a little bit of background on what emergency management is. Is anyone here, by show of hands, familiar with emergency management or understands how the process kind of works?
I have to raise my hand.
I mean, you should.
I hope so.
Okay, so really quick, I'll just explain. This graphic right here is what we call the ladder of assistance. So when disasters begin and end locally, so this ladder of assistance can go up and down. The incident happens at the local level. The city, okay, we're too overwhelmed. We don't have enough people, enough supplies, enough resources. The county emergency management gets involved. They realize, hey, this is beyond our scope. We need more assistance. That is where our department, Oregon Emergency Management, gets what we call activated. So our emergency coordination center, everyone comes together and we start supporting that local entity with whatever they need. And then we communicate with FEMA, who's the federal level, and then bring them in, and they're helping us with resources as well. FEMA would be the first to step out, and then we will pull back and switch into recovery mode after we're done with responding. And then it moves back down until it's back within the local entity's control. So sometimes it takes a while to move up the ladder. You know, maybe we're expecting really extreme heat in the summer. Here, we're all just kind of on standby. It's going to be over the course of 3 or 4 days. Or as we saw in 2020, when the Beachy Creek wildfire happened, that was within a matter of hours. State was activated and we needed FEMA's assistance because it was beyond Marion County's control where I was located. So that is how it works, begins and ends locally. So that's why it's so important at the local and individual level to have as much preparedness knowledge and resources in place as you can, because that's where the help is going to start. Okay, so we live in Oregon. What does everyone love about Oregon? Why do you live here?
Green.
Green, yes. What else?
Climate.
Climate. Which climate?
The good one.
The seasons that we get. For the 3 months out of the year, it doesn't rain. Yeah, I mean, we live in a pretty fantastic state. We have mountains, we have the desert, we have the ocean, we have these beautiful forests. With that comes some hazards, right? It's kind of the collateral damage of living here. So we have human caused hazards, you know, cyber incidents, civil disturbance, and then we have those natural disasters, flood, wildfire, droughts, winter storms, which we're kind of in that season right now, landslides, earthquakes, severe cold, severe heat. These are kind of those cyclical disasters. Right now, November to February, we're kind of all on the edge of our seat because it is cold outside. So we're kind of expecting that winter storm. May to October, we're on the edge of our seat. Ooh, okay, wildfire season, how bad is it gonna be this year? So those are things that we can kind of predict, and we can take advantage of what we call blue sky days, those days in between where nothing is really going on, to train, to teach, to prepare, to practice, put all those plans in place. So when those bad days happen, we're ready. But then we have the things we don't know when they're going to happen. Who here has heard of the Cascadia subduction zone earthquake? Okay, majority of people. So maybe for some of you who aren't familiar with it, this is a fault line that is in our state. It starts from northern Vancouver Island all the way to northern California. As you know, with earthquakes, tectonic plates, they're pushing against each other, build up pressure, they slip, they cause the earthquake, the shaking, and then that can lead to a massive tsunami. So with Cascadia, this is something that scientists predict can produce a 9.0 magnitude earthquake. The scale is out of 10, so that's pretty high, could be pretty devastating. And they say there's a 10 to 15% chance that it will occur in the next 50 years. Some people look at that and think, oh, so there's like a 90% chance it's not going to happen. The truth is we're overdue for it. So the big focus of our department, all the preparedness education, the Be 2 Weeks Ready program is really planning for that really bad day. For when, hopefully, Cascadia does not happen for 200 more years, but it's one of those things we just don't know. So we prepare for it because when it does happen, transportation will be impacted, services will be down, first responders will be overwhelmed. So just need to make sure that we're doing what we can to prepare. But why should you? So all of us living in Oregon, we know that the past few summers, wildfires have gotten worse. Winters are getting colder. Every year, things just seem more and more extreme. And the old guidance was have 3 days worth of supplies, 72-hour hit, you're good. Well, just in the 2021 in Marion County, we had a really severe winter ice storm and people were without power for 8 to 10 days in the city. So 3 days we know just isn't enough anymore. So recommendation is at least 2 weeks worth of supplies to be self-sufficient. And also, like I said, with Cascadia, you know, first responders are going to be overwhelmed. So the more that individuals and communities can do to be self-sufficient, to help each other out, that's going to take some pressure off and then just help the community as a whole bounce back. And then if you're prepared, you feel like you have your ducks in a row and you feel pretty good about it, then you become a resource for the community. You can become someone that can help others who maybe don't have as much support or access to resources. So we'll talk about how you can do that on an individual level, but we'll also start with the business side.
Hi, thank you, Kayla. Right, so just a little bit of more detail about my role and how that might engage with you. And please, my card's on the table, feel free to reach out. I have some different ways that I would engage. But so my role, like I said, I engage the private sector in preparedness, response, and recovery operations. So essentially amplifying the private sector voice to the state and which they need to hear, because a lot of times, you know, we would just like be a juggernaut, right? Go do all this work and then somebody raise their hand and say, well, what about the private sector? Well, that's where I come in and I'll be sure to be pretty loud. I know I'm a little short, but I can be loud. So I serve as a conduit, like I mentioned, between the private sector, the state, tribal and local emergency managers. I'm also scout business connections for us. So, you know, make sure that you have the appropriate points of contact for private sector integration across the state and across the local community. I do outreach and education to businesses on emergency management. I also collaborate with the other P3 managers. That's what we call ourselves, because public-private partnership, it's a lot of Ps to say a lot. So P3 program managers nationwide, like I said, there's about 30 or so. We have a national group that we get together on calls. Right now, we're all supporting LA, right? Engaging with them, doing what we can to support them. And not too long ago, it was North Carolina. So we're all pretty busy. We all connect to each other, but it's awesome because if you called me and said, hey, I can't find this connection to the supplier, and I might not have the connection, I can reach out to my partners nationwide and say, do you have this connection? And most of the time they do have an answer for me. So in addition, I work with FEMA really closely, as well as the Office of Business, Industry and Infrastructure Protection. And that is a group that you could actually sign up for as a business. We call it OB3I. So OB3I at the national level, whenever there's a major event, they'll activate as well. And they'll start having these coordination calls. So you could actually call in as a business, thousands of businesses do, and they'll do a weather briefing. They'll tell you what's happening. I say weather because a lot of times it has to do with hurricanes when they activate. During COVID, they activated for the first time nationally. So usually it's per region that's having that disaster event. We did it nationally for COVID and we did it for almost a year. So we have these regular weekly calls where businesses can call in, find out what's happening with supply chain, find out what's happening with that local integration. So it's really an educational place. So reach out to me. I'll get you that connection if you're interested. And then I serve as a liaison in our emergency coordination center for the private sector. Oh, yeah, same. All right. So a couple of tips that I like to share just to keep it succinct. That was a picture there in the bottom right. I'm sure you all recognize one of our major ice snow storms. That was Portland area, I think about 5 years ago. So a couple of tips to think about how could you pivot operations if you could. Is the location that you operate out of essential? Could you move your business someplace else if you had to? Can you operate out of home? A lot of us learned that pretty quickly some years ago, right? It's 5, can you believe 5 years? Mm-hmm. I couldn't even believe that. I saw this meme about that and I said, 5, no, it was yesterday. It was like 10 months ago. And then sometimes it feels 10 years ago. So a lot of us figured that out. Fun fact in emergency management, before COVID, we all worked in the office. None of us had really tested a telework capability, which you would think as emergency managers, right? I wish it were an 8 to 5. We always like to say it's usually after 5 on a Friday that something happens or a holiday weekend. But after COVID, we all learned to be able to operate at home, which I think is great to exercise. And then think about your employees. Do you have subject matter experts that you have to have working in your space? Are you able to do some just-in-time training for new folks to hire? You know, how dependent are you on that turnover? Thinking about alternate technological support structures. So information technology, we had to learn quite a bit, for example, about our server capability, working offsite, and what that might look like. Knowing that the cloud is still a physical space. And that's something, you know, that you might not think about, but, oh yeah, it's in the cloud, it's saved in the cloud. Well, if that server location goes down, and that actually happened up in Portland not long ago, some banks that used a certain cloud system was in Beaverton, and that area went down, and then they were without their information. So thinking of that in that way, rethinking supply and inventory. During COVID, I had a call from a rural community store in Eastern Oregon that said, hey, our normal supplier drove right through the parking lot, didn't even stop and deliver our goods. We're without supply. Do you have connections with other businesses that could supply us? So we actually, interestingly, started a grocer call that we continue to this day to check in on supply chain. What are they seeing? What's a big deal now with grocers? Eggs, that's right. So in fact, just this week, I texted one of our main connections that we built over time by having these business connections. I said, hey, what's the deal with eggs? Can you tell me some down low, you know, what's happening so I can share that with some other folks? And essentially it was some suppliers are having some challenges, bird flu. He said, but we're able to maintain a reasonable stock. Although interesting, he said that we were seeing, I don't know if you've noticed, if you anybody buy a whole chicken, buy those once in a while. He said, you've noticed the birds are getting smaller because they're having to harvest the birds at a younger age because of the bird flu. I thought that's interesting. So I was always like, get me a 2-pound bird, and come home with like a 6-pound turkey / chicken, and now they're like much more reasonable size. Thanks, bird flu, I don't know. So something to think about, who is your inventory supplier? Can you pivot? Do you have those contacts? Because someone might be stuck in that traffic jam right there, not able to make it. Although likely most of the inventory suppliers might be in that chain too, but you don't know. So something to connect about and think about. And then partnering with other community organizations, partnering with other businesses. Can you share space if you had to? Can you share generator power if you had to? How prepared is that group versus how you are? Some things to think about. And then we always plan for the worst case scenario, the 100-foot tsunami off the coast. That's how we live our life. So don't worry, we do, but
We're really
prepare.
fun at parties.
We always need to sober the room up pretty quickly, thinking about the worst case scenario helps you with the most minimal disaster, right? Well, we lost power. Great, because we prepped for this, thinking about an earthquake happening. And we know this area, Springfield, we know that up to the mountains, right? We can have up to severe shaking with this 9.0 quake off our coast. We don't get off with the little, was that an earthquake? No, we're gonna know, it'll happen. We'll get a warning, thankfully, earthquake early warning. I'm sure we'll talk about alerts here in a minute, but we won't get off so lucky when we think about that size. So I wanted to just bring, and I know these are tiny, tiny words up here, I apologize. A couple of things that I've done in the last few years related to businesses inquiring for more support or more information from the state. Several years ago, I had a business reach out and say, hey, do you have any information on how I recover from a mass casualty event? So what just happened like in New Orleans, right? And I queried, I'm really close connections with Idaho, Washington, and Alaska. My counterparts, we did a lot of research. There's some stuff out there, but it wasn't really comprehensive. So we decided to start a seminar series, a virtual series that was 90 minutes long. And what we do is bring in subject matter experts from around the world, around the nation, with lived experience. That was really important to us, that we brought in business folks that experienced some of these things so they could talk about it from it really happening, not, being a former lecturer, not just sitting there talking at you about something that could happen, but people that had been through it. So we did 9 sessions in 2023 on mass casualty impact and recovery. There you can see them now. Reach out, I'll send you the link to watch the videos, but little warning, super powerful. As you know, mass casualty, a lot of active shooter conversation. There was also a ramming incident, a Boston Marathon bombing was discussed. And then there were some school shooting conversations, but super helpful, amazing folks that decided to come on just out of the goodness of their hearts and brief our business community. And we initially had decided, that would be something just in Oregon or maybe Pacific Northwest based. But interestingly, when we put the seminar series out there and ran this in 2023, it ended up getting folks registered from all 50 states and 44 countries, because people were like, yeah, we need to learn more about this. And we want to hear what businesses have to say about their experience. So it's really been amazing. And then last year, we decided to do, we only did 4 because 9 was wild. 9 was a lot. We were really lucky 2023 that we didn't activate that year very frequently. But that's a very rare year. So when that happens, usually we'll be in our emergency coordination center and we'll have time to host a seminar, type thing. But last year we just did 4. The first two, we did violence in the workplace, also based on requests from businesses. We did one on homelessness and houselessness, as we say in Oregon, in the impact and safety and security of business community, which was really good. We had Starbucks on, a number of other companies on, talking about, their engagement. And the last two, and I have to highly recommend the final one, it was on artificial intelligence. So we did one on the benefits, which is exciting, and we all hear about that now, right? There's a whole lot of like, oh, it's amazing, out there. But the last one we did was the malicious use, and it was fascinating to me and sobering, very, very sobering, but very fascinating. We had two speakers, one of which who works on the energy grid for the nation and what they're doing to prepare for a potential AI-like attack. And they told interesting stories like artificial intelligence now mimicking your friends or family's voice. So they could call you and say, hey, can you transfer $23 million from one account to another? And this person said, oh, that's my partner. Yes, and did. And you can imagine how that story ended. Not well, right? So fascinating, sobering stuff. I highly recommend the final session. And so we're hoping to do more of these. I will share that the business partner who asked for the mass casualty impact and recovery information, he had his own active shooter event not 2 months after he asked us for that support. And we added him to our group, our planning group, and he still continues to be on that group today. And that's from Albertsons Companies, the shooting event that happened a few years ago. So incredible group. But those are some things that we do here at the state, is respond to requests in different ways. And how can we expand and really get engagement. And I will say too, we had over 10,000 registrants the first year in the series, and last year with 4 we had about 4,000, which was, I think, pretty good, pretty on point there. But it shows us what's the interest. And so if you have a topic, for example, we're really hoping to get funding next year for this series, so that's something we're working on. We're also thinking about taking it back to that targeted violence or terrorism piece and nexus, because there's so much to talk about. And that mass casualty, we could have done another 10 sessions, because the layers of the onion on recovery for that is incredible. So that's something we're looking forward to doing next year. And I also shared with you some of my favorite links, which you'll have these slides, I believe, so you'll be able to connect. But also, please do feel free to reach out. We can have just a chat. Love to hear more about your business and what you do. That's great for me, because then when things occur, I can think back about, oh, I should reach out to this person. But also, I maintain a listserv. I promise you I won't spam you or send you monthly regular messages well. I can't promise that. If there's a disaster, you will hear from me. But one of the things that I do during disasters is I host coordination calls. So I will brief you on what's going on, what we're doing, and I'll listen to you and pass on your information to state, the local and tribal partners with whatever needs happen. So we did it during COVID. We did calls during the wildfires and during the potential chlorine shortage that we had. So remember that year we had like COVID, ice storms, chlorine shortage, another fire, more COVID. I mean, it was like I think it was 2021.
It's a banner.
It was a banner year. I think 10 years older that year, right? But we had a lot of calls, and those are important because it's helpful to amplify your voice, but also so you hear what's going on. And that's what I do for my listserv. If we activate, I send a message out, hey, we're activated, this is happening, at the state level. So you don't have to think about it too much. Or if there's more that involves bird flu, I will send something out, and let you know there's supply chain issues here or something's happening, so you'll know. But I'm always open to hearing from you. So my cell phone's on there, you can text as well. And turn it over to Kayla. We'll have Q&A at the end too, so be carefully thinking about, supply questions.
So real quick, I wanted to mention what is in your bag that was on your chair, and we're gonna go over these documents. But the first one you have is a copy of the evacuation levels. Oregon uses a 3-level system, so we'll talk about that. and some things you can put in your go bag. This is our preparedness checklist for businesses. And then there is a pamphlet from the Division of Financial Regulation on disaster preparedness for your finances. They also do community presentations in English and Spanish. So if that's something you would like for your business, let me know. I can get you connected. A flyer for our UT Weeks Ready program, which I'll talk about. And then the emergency pocket plan, how you can start doing your preparedness planning. So I'm gonna bum you out a little bit first, but then I'm gonna empower you. So lift your spirit. So just hang with me, okay? So we need to be prepared, right? We know bad things are happening. We're seeing it on the news. There's no perfect formula to being prepared. There's no perfect list of things in your go bag. Everyone's plan is different because everyone's needs are different. There are books written on preparedness, hundreds of pages. It's super overwhelming. We work in this field and it's still like, ooh, there's a lot to think about. But really, there are 3 things that you can do. They don't cost any money. They take a little bit of your time, but you can do them and you're immediately set up for success and better off when it comes to being prepared. So if you remember nothing else from my presentation, remember, sign up for alerts, have a plan, and practice your plan. And we're going to talk about each of those. So unfortunately, there does not exist one perfect alerting mechanism that will work in every situation for every hazard. That's why we encourage redundancy in communication. So having more than one way to receive information. So it starts with local emergency alerts. I went to Google and typed in Springfield Emergency Management, and this is what came up. And you'll see within that red circle, right there, boom, lane alerts. I think that's what that's, yeah, lane alerts. So first thing that you can do is go to your local emergency management website and sign up for alerts. It's a free account. You can choose how to be notified, phone, text, email, which notifications you want to receive, and the order in which you want to be notified. So do you want a phone call first? Do you want a text message first? Easiest way, know what's going on around you so you can know what you need to do to react. Another note on that. If you, like, I have parents who live on the coast. I go to Lincoln County Emergency Management's website. I create an account there, and then I receive alerts for the coast. So if there are other counties that you would like to receive notifications for, just go into Google, go to their website. It's also good to go to the Emergency Management's website and read up on emergency plans. They'll have resources, they'll have updates linked there, things that they want you all to know. So it's always good to spend a couple minutes and just see what's listed up there. If you are on social media, it's also good to follow your local emergency management office. Most of them have either Facebook or Instagram. The state, we have Instagram and Facebook. So during Blue Sky Days, we are sharing preparedness tips, resources. Bad days, we are sharing real-time information and updates, and we are also resharing what that local jurisdiction is experiencing. So local emergency management, Lane County is posting something, we are sharing what Lane County is sharing to get it to as many people as possible. So if you're already on social media, follow us, follow your local emergency management office, and you'll be able to see that information on a regular basis. Does everyone remember last October when all the phones went off for that test from FEMA? Everyone have that? Okay. So that is an example of a wireless emergency alert. Sends a notification to your phone based on your location. These are not anything that you have to sign up for. Most 99% of the time you buy a cell phone, they are already turned on and activated. Sometimes people will go in, especially in anticipation of a test, they'll turn it off, or it just wasn't activated to begin with. So it's important to make sure that that is turned on, or if you turn it off for some reason, make sure you turn it back on. So we're going to check and see if your WIA is turned on. So does anyone here have an Android device? Okay, a few people. So we'll start with Android. So open your phone, go to settings, either search emergency or click on safety and emergency. And then it should show, I don't know if it says government alerts, says earthquake alerts and other alert options. If they're highlighted, that means that they're on. If they are gray, they are not. I am not an Android user. I don't speak Android. So, but I think it's the same where it's highlighted. Very similar for Apple devices. Go to settings, click on notifications, swipe all the way to the bottom of the page. And if those bars are green, means your notifications are turned on. So if there is something happening near you, you will receive an alert. Yes,
Might point out on Apple, if you go to emergency alerts, you have to go one more, click on emergency alerts to get local awareness.
oh, did they add
It
that?
was not turned on by default.
Oh, that must be an update. In your household who have a phone, they need to have an account. Why is that? Why should they also be signed up for alerts?
Because you're in different places.
Exactly, because ideally you would all be together at home with all of your supplies when something happens, right? In the event that you're not, you, your partner, hey, you're both getting that information, you know, okay, it's time to activate our plan, what we have talked about. So redundancy in communication, you have multiple ways. You're scrolling social media, you see something, you're on Facebook, your WIA could go off, your local emergency alert could come through your phone. So you have an emergency radio, so there should be multiple ways that you can get that information. Another alert I wanted to share is the earthquake early warning system. If you go into your app store and type in My Shake app or My Shake, this is the icon that you should see. It's completely free and it is a notification system. So it does not detect earthquakes, but it can sense the seismic activity and give 5, 10, 12 seconds, depends, of a heads up. Hey, shaking is coming. And that might be just enough time for you to get to a safe spot, drop cover, hold on, pull off to the side of the road, know what you need to do. So sometimes 5 seconds can make all the difference. So that's something that you can download. And then evacuations. So that flyer that you have in your bag. In Oregon, you will typically see this infographic shared a lot between May and October. That's our wildfire season. If you see level 1, that is be ready. Okay, know where your supplies are, have a plan, talk to everyone in your household. Hey, this is what we're gonna do. Looks like there's a wildfire happening in the state. If it comes our way, let's have that conversation. Level 2 is be set. That means your bags are packed, they're in the car, you've rounded up your pets, you know what your plan is, you know what you're doing. You're just waiting to be told, hey, you actually need to leave. Go ahead and go. If you get a level 3 notice, you gotta go. That is no time to pull the frames off the wall, to grab your stuff. Where did I put my social security card? You just have to leave because life safety is of the utmost importance. And then you cannot return until authorities say, hey, this area is clear. If you've been watching the news or following people on social media impacted by the LA wildfires, personally, the people that I follow, I've seen everyone share, I didn't know what to grab, or I grabbed things in a panic. I wish I had grabbed X. So thinking about those things ahead of time, you know, hey, I have all these photo albums I want. They're gonna be in this room on this shelf and I know exactly where they are and I'm gonna grab them when I need to go. Or they're in a tote. Knowing what you want and kind of doing that assessment beforehand, what are the important things to take? Because you ideally will get a level 2. Hey, pack your bags. Sometimes it is, hey, a fire has broken out near you. It is dangerous. You gotta go. If at any point when this notification system gets activated, if you're at a level 2 and you want to leave, you can leave. Do what is best for you. If you're at a level 1 and you're like, you know what, we're just going to go to a different area for a while. You do not have to wait until it's level 3 super dangerous. Go when it feels best for you, especially if you need extra assistance or you maybe have a lot of people or livestock to move. The more time you have, the better. The next thing, the emergency pocket plan. So we talked about signing up for alerts, know what's going on around you, have a plan. What are you going to do when those things happen? This is a great way to start the conversation with people in your household. Information for up to 6 household members and 2 pets. Everything that you would need. Draw a map of your work or school, evacuation route, insurance information, going through it. Out of area contact. When large disasters happen, communications go down. Local phone calls don't get through. So you kind of have to create this phone tree, calling someone in a different area and ideally in a different state. Like I have family in Texas. My sister-in-law lives 30 minutes away from me, but there's a bridge between us. We're not gonna be able to get to each other. So she calls Texas, I call Texas, we tell Texas what is going on, and they share each other's information with us. So think about people in your life that you could incorporate into your plan. Know your evacuation routes. Is there more than one way out of your business, out of your neighborhood? Have you practiced it? Do you, on a regular basis, do your staff know if something is to happen, how are they going to safely get out of the building? How are you going to meet if you get separated, if you're not all together when the disaster happens? And then share your plan with loved ones, with trusted people in your life. If you are going to do something, let them know, because maybe they can't get a hold of you, especially if they're in another state. They see that, oh man, a big wildfire ripped through your county. They don't hear from you, but if they know what your plan was, they're like, okay, they said they were gonna go to a shelter. I'll try to see if I can get a hold of that shelter. Because so think about this, when an emergency happens, so think about like massive earthquake. What is your first concern? What are you first thinking about?
Get under something.
Yeah, yeah, but who is your biggest concern?
Family.
Yeah, pets, family, loved ones. Who here would say work? Yeah, so all of this, business preparedness is great, but if your staff, if you don't have that personal preparedness, if your family isn't taken care of, work is gonna be your last thing that you're gonna wanna do. But if you're set up, if you're prepared, then you're in a position, if your business plays a role in response or can help the community, your staff will have an easier time standing your business back up and being able to respond and be a resource. Because we're all going to take care of our own first, right? Especially on a really bad day. Okay, when it comes to a go bag, 6 Ps: people, pets, prescriptions, phones, personal computers, plastic and cash, because sometimes those card readers go down, papers, important documents. You can have the actual copies or you can scan them, USB drive, that doesn't take up a ton of room in a go bag. And pictures and other irreplaceable memorabilia. What I have done is scanned all of my photos onto an external hard drive. That is sitting on top of my important documents folder in a drawer. I know where it is. I can grab that and I have what I want to take with me. Not an all exhaustive list. Everyone's needs are different. Everyone's plan is different. So this is a guide to get you started, but think about Hey, if I had to leave my home for 2 weeks, if I had to go camping, a very not fun camping trip, what would I want to take with me to stay safe, healthy, and sane? Okay, couple last preparedness tips. Preparedness is a journey, not a destination. You are creating a plan based on your current needs. Those needs will change over time as you get older, as kids get older, as you get new pets, as you move. So you're constantly going to be revamping your plan. It's a lot to do. So you just do what you can when you can. Before you go out and buy a bunch of stuff, take an inventory first. A lot of us, we have old flashlights, batteries, canned food, things that, you buy, you put away, you kind of forget about it. Do an inventory first, see what you already have, and then go out and buy what you need. Instead of getting rid of old clothes, you're gonna go donate a bunch. Are there a couple outfits in there that still fit? They're just not your style anymore. But you throw that in a go bag so that you don't have to put an outfit that you do like to wear on a regular basis in there and forget about it. Buy a few non-perishable items and bottles of water as you can. Every month I go to the grocery store, I buy one of these 1 gallon bottles. It's $1.69, and I'm just slowly building up my water supply. Emergency freeze-dried meals are SNAP and EBT eligible. This is something I just learned a few months ago, which is great. And then right now, winter time, post holidays, emergency supplies are typically on sale. So look for those online and in stores. And then practice your plan. You can have the most beautifully well-written plan in the world, looks stunning on paper. If you never practice it, you don't really know that it works. Or if you don't practice it and then the bad day happens and you do what you think is going to work and it doesn't, now you've got a problem solve in real time. So take advantage of those blue sky days. Hey, let's practice monthly exiting the building with all the staff at your home. Let's practice evacuating, driving out of our neighborhood. What would we do? Build that muscle memory. So when the bad day happens, you know that what you need to do is going to work for you. And that may change, but just make it part of the daily conversation with staff, with your loved ones. And then it's just something that people know, hey, this is what we do to make sure that we're safe. Make those changes as they occur, and then test that out of area of contact. Anyone who is a part of your plan should know that they're a part of your plan. Okay, congratulations. You all just got a crash course in the B2 Week Training Program, which is this pamphlet. So this is our preparedness program. You can scan the QR code on the back of your pamphlet or up here. This teaches you what you need to do to be self-sufficient for at least 2 weeks over the course of 8 units. Those 8 units, preparing to prepare. So the mental aspect of living through a disaster. Your emergency plan. You already signed up for alerts, turned on your WIA. You're already mostly through chapter 2. Food plan. How much food should you have? What type of food should you have? Water plan. How much water do you need? How do you store your water? How do you make sure your water is safe to drink? Waste and hygiene. If you don't have running water, how is everyone gonna go to the bathroom? How do you maintain privacy? How does everyone stay clean and healthy? Shelter plan. What can you do to your living space before a disaster happens to make it safer? And then what is that checklist immediately following a disaster like an earthquake, assessing for damages and assessing for safety? First aid plan. What should you have in a first aid kit? And what are some ways, different classes and skills that you can learn that would be beneficial? And then emergency management. Emergency management. What does FEMA do? What does my department do? What does your local emergency manager do? And then how to get involved at a higher community level, like community emergency response teams, if you want to do that. It's available in English, Spanish, Vietnamese, Russian, Simplified Chinese, and American Sign Language. It's available on our website. You can complete it individually, which you can just go online, read it at your own pace, or you can have facilitated discussions conducted by what we call a program coordinator. So we can find someone in your area who could come and do maybe a once a month, once a quarter, whatever it works for you and your business or your community. And they can walk you through the toolkit and the activities. Yeah. Okay, so if you are interested in becoming a trainer yourself, if you're like, hey, I want to be a program coordinator, I want to bring this to my agency or a group of agencies or your community, I offer trainings every quarter. The next ones will be in April and May, dates to be determined, but you can email me if you want more information. Or if you would like to just be connected with someone in your area. We have quite a few people who went through it in Lane County who can come and do that for you. Okay. So we can, two things I'd like you all to think about before we do Q&A. Think about how can your business support your community during disasters? What role would you play and how can you help the community get back on its feet? And then which businesses, community groups, or organizations could you partner with and collaborate and start having those conversations before the bad day on how you could work together to help the community out? And that's it. Q&A.
Question. Guys are very thorough.
It's a lot of information, I know. Yeah.
Great presentation, thank you. So we have an opportunity to work with OEM, Springfield Utility Board, because we're working through a grant process for some larger backup generators. That is the utility scale solution for the needs that we have. One of the things that January 2024 ice storm is that elder care facilities, urgent care facilities, memory care facilities, they may have needed backup generation. So there's two parts to backup generation solutions. One is the engineering design cost money, and then it's the actual paying for the generator and the equipment. So what programs does OEM have in place to help with those elder care, memory care, urgent care? Because what ended up happening was the hospitals got flooded, and then it created crisis, another layer of the crisis. So anyway, that's just an open question for you for resources that folks can access.
Yeah, so I don't know if we have a program specific for that, but anytime anyone reaches out with a request, we can assist them. So we may not know the right answer or a specific resource, but we can reach out to someone in their area or find out about information. Because that's good for us to know, especially being at the state level. We don't know everything that's available at the local level. So we get that information and that's just added to our resource bank. But if someone reaches out, say, hey, in this area, like we need information on how to get resources, we can work with them on that. And with the older adults, memory care places, things like that, I host a community preparedness webinar. We did one last year for Spanish speaking communities in Oregon. This spring, it's focusing on older adults. So we're going to talk about emergency planning, and the webinar, the target audience is organizations and facilities that support older adults. So we're going to talk about medication stockpiling, hear from a pharmacist. How do you do that? Emergency planning considerations and evacuation, and what can you expect at a shelter? What if you need help getting to a shelter? How to determine misinformation and some scams that sometimes happen. Mental health and social isolation, the importance of having a support network, and then how emergency management offices and those organizations can work together to support older adults, and hear from an emergency manager and someone from an organization. So I'll be happy to share that. Registration should open end of February. We'll have all that information and I'll be sure to share it with all of you if you'd like to join. And it'll also be posted on our YouTube channel.
And also we're working to get the names of those facilities, because we know in the state, right, that the assisted living and the memory care facilities are regulated. So state agencies have those POCs, but sort of the independent living retirement facilities aren't in the same space. So we're working to see if we can get the contacts of those facilities in the state so we can reach out, connect them with this conversation to think about that, because we know a lot of us wear a lot of hats. We know in those facilities too, likely there might be a turnover with management structure. So there's conversations to be had about thinking about what we would do in a 3-story building if you lose power, and say a lot of your folks that live there have an electric wheelchair or have no capability to walk downstairs. What would you do? And we know there are folks out there that are thinking about that really closely, and some that might not be. So that's what I think we're trying to do with connecting.
Lane County has an emergency preparedness group, right, of allied businesses and professionals, do they? I'm new to the community and I've participated in those in my other communities. And they had subsections, the health center, the health people, the senior people, and we get together quarterly.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I don't know that about the, I
Okay.
know Oregon Health Authority might have more connection that way, but that's great to
The
know.
hospitals are very prepared, so the rest of us kind of.
That's great to hear.
And follow their lead because they have to do very aggressive planning and
Yes,
practicing and stuff,
yes.
but if the smaller providers could dovetail on that and get together quarterly, then the power people and the water people and the, you know, electric chair people up and down stair people.
Yeah.
It really does help be more prepared. It's just getting people out. Usually we have 1 or 2 providers at the meetings and we really needed 12 or 15.
Yeah, making those connections before you need them, really crucial. So when that day happens, you can just pick up the phone and you've already had that conversation. Versus trying to scramble, Google, call people, hey, who can help me with this?
I'm the first on the list to get the bus to come take my people away.
Yeah. Yes.
Other questions?
A question.
Yeah.
What are you, having been involved in this in varying degrees for so long, having lived in other communities, other states, where this is more of a frequent and there's more effort and resources put into preparedness than into rapid response after,
Mhm.
are you seeing a shift in Oregon, in our state, overall, and awareness is key, and that's based on experience, we're a little more experienced now, unfortunately. Are you seeing a shift in the resources toward preparedness? And it goes back to, I think, the question about generators. I mean, this is not built into a business plan necessarily, especially for a small business. And our utilities may or may not be having the resources to build up the preparedness and resiliency side of the emergency management. I feel it's a huge vulnerability, and I see how critical it is to shift the resources from fighting the fires, or you gotta be ready for that. What we can do is what you just laid out for us individually and for our businesses, but on a broader macro scale, and I know they're gonna be talking about this legislator session this year, but what should we be looking for and supporting, and it has to be in balance, so that our communities can legitimately be at a macro level more prepared, as opposed to, you know, relying on FEMA and, you know, the recovery like we're seeing down in LA. Can't be perfect, but
Yeah.
better.
I would say absolutely connecting with your elected officials so that they're aware of the concern. We have a really good connected relationship, I think, in Oregon, and I would say I've been here since 2017. The second time, and I would say there's absolutely, especially after the wildfires of that year and how things just I think COVID really taught us a lot, and especially at the emergency response level of maybe our capability. We were activated for almost 200 days, which is long for us in a row, you know, and it taught us bench depth, it taught us connectivity, it taught us cost analysis. What do we need to put into a system in order to be able to get it back? Our agency went from being under the military department as sort of a sub-agency to our own standalone state agency. I think it's doubled in size in the last few years. Triple in size in the last few years. I think there are a lot of progress that's been made, in particular with the wildfires that have happened, because there's so much impact, like on the eastern side of the state, like with cattlemen's, what's happened most recently. I would say yes. I would say expressing to elected officials concerns is great because they're such a great voice, especially this long session coming up. I've seen a lot of shift since 2017. I've seen it on a national scale, how I mobilize with my partners nationally. We went from being individual states to being kind of one family, and that's how we treat it. We text all the time. So I think that increasing communication, increasing the alert capability, understanding the graveness of emergency response and what we're facing. Our little trial tsunami warning from some weeks ago. You guys remember that, right? That happened in November from the 7.0 off Northern California, things like that. I really think it's better. In addition, we connect with our neighbors in British Columbia, so that's something we have done before.
Well, I appreciate you being the advocate for how can we help? How can we
I
help?
want to help you.
You.
Yeah, I don't.
And
you can
that
help me.
in and itself is really important from our perspective. And because we're always there to help our community.
Of
And I'm
course.
talking about our
Yeah.
members. That's the first call we get. How can we help? But I am very interested in how those resources, including infrastructure resources, are being funded.
Yeah.
Because at the local level,
Yes.
they're needed.
Money is important, and we do work really closely with the energy points of contact, and they are so on it and so engaging. And
Yep.
I will say too, one thing we're doing in a few months is hosting a summit with rail and fuel partners to talk about mass movement of fuel into Oregon. We know 90% of our fuel stores is right on the Columbia River, right on a liquefiable soil. You know, not
The
gonna be
things
good.
you wish you didn't know.
Yeah, things you didn't know, but we're gonna talk about that and see what we can do, and those conversations matter. Yes, thanks for being patient.
So go back to the January ice storms. I had a lot of conversations with customers that came from other parts of the country who had very catastrophic experiences in other part of the country. And they said, well, they shared that in those instances, the National Guard and other resources were deployed to assist those areas. So question then in the moment was, why the heck is the National Guard not here? Because they were saying they would bring backup generators, they would bring shelters, they would bring propane tanks and heating and food. And so well, I appreciate the focus on being self-resilient and having agreements with other agencies. We have mutual aid agreements on the utility side, so that message is great. When is the National Guard going to come?
Yeah, so I can help you with that. So an example of, most recently, we did an iron ore exercise where we brought in all 33 state agencies that are tasked with responding to any state in an emergency. That includes the Guard, the military department, as well as the local and tribal emergency managers. And what happens is, if there's a disaster in this county, the local emergency manager will say, this is what's happening. They'll tell the state. And they'll say, we need this and this and this, or we have this problem. What do we do? How can we solve it? And all those 33 state agencies will come together and say, we have this resource, we have this resource, we have this we can help, we have this we can do, and then they'll get deployed. So we do engage in that way, in this cross communication. So if there were something that the Guard could do, would say, hey, can you help us? For example, traffic safety points. The Guard's amazing, and you know, if we say we need to close some of the roads towards the fires, they'll deploy folks, soldiers out to prevent folks from saying, you know what I want to do, drive up there. You know, and we're like, please don't, please don't do
Go
that.
sightseeing.
Because we also work search and rescue, in which the Guard's a really amazing partner with that here at the state level. We have a state coordinator that works with them. And if you see a Black Hawk flying over, likely it's to help save someone. So we do communicate in that way, cross agency. So they know, they always know.
Is that local? When you say local, is that county?
County emergency
Okay, so
management.
county
So it's
triggers that
city,
ask.
county.
Okay, they declare
yes.
emergency or request, so
Right.
it has to be formally the county, so if it's
Yeah.
hyper local,
Right,
right? Like
They
it was
ask-
for us here, it was really. It was our local community and we were all on the front lines responding.
right.
In, you know, utilities to city, to chamber, so, but. It was just one of those incidences where it took some time, and so we were trying to map that out.
Sometimes it can take a little bit of time to trickle up, other times it's wild.
And I think
how
we're working
fast.
on the solution, so
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
unpacking the problem, and that's, you know, that's just part of, it's good clarity for
But
us, you know.
communication is critical. And if you were in some space and said, hey, you know, I have some questions, email me. or call me and I'll get some answers for you what's going on.
Well, Sonya and Kayla, thank you guys so much for coming. We're past time now, but we do have business cards here at the
Yes.
front table.
Yes.
I just want to come back and before they leave.
Please.
Thank you guys so much.
Well, I was just gonna mention it on which.
That's good. That's really good. Thank you, ladies. Very good.